when robbers terrorized the forests around Lubavitch. Benjamin was a peddler, and he used to go peddling with his small bundle of wares to the surrounding villages. His wife was barren. They lived in a house with a large vegetable garden at the river's edge. Benjamin was a God-fearing man who carried out all mitzvahs, especially charity, which he distributed generously. Aside from these virtues, he was thought to be an unlearned person. However, an unusual occurrence eventually disclosed Benjamin's true personality. It took place in the middle of the 4th century in the 6th millennium, according to the Jewish calendar reckoning, that is to say, about 400 years ago. Lubavitch was already a town with a long history behind it. Something then happened which greatly aroused not only Lubavitch, but also the surrounding area. A band of murderous robbers had gathered in the forest, which was on the route between Lubavitch and Dobromizl. Every person traveling through this forest was attacked by these robbers. But these dreadful highwaymen were not satisfied with merely attacking wayfarers. They did not lie in wait for their victims, but went into the nearby villages and robbed the peasants of all their possessions. They robbed them of their horses, cattle, and herds. The whole area was gripped with terror. People were afraid to travel on the road, and afraid, too, to stay at home. For some time, Lubavitch alone was left unmolested by the robbers, who seemed afraid to enter this townlet where, after all, there was a comparatively considerable population. But once, 2 of these robbers, who thought that the people of Lubavitch were surely as scared of them as the rest of the people in that area, and would not dare retaliate or oppose them, left their forest hideout and went forth to Lubavitch. The first house they chose for their attack was on its outskirts. Evidently, the robbers did not want to risk too much. In addition, they chose this house knowing that no one but a 13-year-old Jewish girl was in it. On entering the house, they started to take everything that came to hand. The terrified young girl began screaming and made an attempt to rush to the door leading outside, hoping by her screams to attract a passerby to come to her aid and drive off the robbers. But before she reached the door, one of the robbers blocked her path, catching her in his brawny arms. Covering her mouth with his hand, he prevented her from making any further call for help. The poor innocent Jewish girl realized the terrible danger she was in, and started wrestling with the savage brute with all her strength, scratching and biting and kicking him. Despite his superior strength, he found that he could not manage her, so he began striking her with his fists until blood came trickling down her face. This brought out all the girl's obstinacy and determination to save herself and her honor from this beast, and in desperation, freeing her mouth from the robber's hands, renewed her cries for help with all her might. Her screams would probably have gotten lost in the wind, never reaching the houses which were some distance away. But as if drawn to the spot by a hidden power, Benjamin the peddler just happened to be passing by. And hearing desperate cries for help, he sprang forward and burst into the house. The girl was still struggling in the robber's arms, while the second robber was engaged in gathering together anything of value that he could find in the house. As soon as the robbers saw the intruder, they both hurled themselves at him. It seemed now as if Benjamin was in great danger for his life. How could he, a small, thin, puny Jew, attempt to pit his feeble strength against the greater might of these 2 powerful and ruthless robbers? But Benjamin, unafraid, turned towards them and uttered a few words known only to the mystics. Immediately the 2 robbers were stricken by an overpowering drowsiness and sank to the floor, as if in a swoon, not stirring from where they had fallen. The danger being over, the little Jewish girl became calmer and stood looking at the scene in wonder, hardly able to grasp what had taken place before her very eyes. True, she had seen everything, but couldn't imagine that the overpowering of the robbers had come through the secret powers of Benjamin, and that he was in fact a mystic. She together with all the other inhabitants of Lubavitch, considered him to be a respectable, orthodox, good-hearted Jew, but nevertheless quite an ordinary person, without any special claims to spiritual talents, let alone having secret powers possessed only by great mystics. Benjamin now had but one thing to do. The two robbers lay helpless on the floor, and it only remained for him to notify the local police. The robbers were soon taken away to prison, still in their helpless condition. Only when the robbers were safely behind bars did they regain consciousness. The police then set to, and with the aid of a good thrashing, the two robbers eventually gave information of the whereabouts of the rest of the gang in the forest, which led to their wholesale roundup and arrest by a party of armed police. Thus Lubavitch and all the surrounding area was finally freed from the band of robbers who for so long had cast a wave of terror over the population. Whether the townspeople did not know the exact details of Benjamin's exploit, or did not choose to believe that this was a result of his secret powers, the fact is that the affair was soon forgotten.